Welcome to the Potter Discussion.
Welcome back to the Potter Discussion. This is episode 105, and on today's episode we will be discussing the pointless things of Harry Potter. Let's do this. Hey, how's it going? Episode 105, a lot of episodes. Today we are talking about the pointless things in Harry Potter, the things that make no sense, that only have one very specific use, the things that no one ever uses. We're going to be discussing that today, and might I say, there is quite a long list, so I didn't include all of them, but there are a couple on here that you're going to be hearing in this episode that are just hilarious, and I've been wanting to talk about this last one for so long. It's so funny. And I thought it was a joke the first time. It is a joke, but I always thought it was like an inside, not really meant to be there kind of thing. But when I found out it wasn't, just hilarious. So that's in this episode, and I'm very excited for that. What news? I just started reading A Game of Thrones. I know I'm a little late to that party, but I started watching the show, and I didn't really like it, so I switched to the books, and it's very good so far. I like a chapter in, but still, great book. I'll let you know how I think of it later. But this is a Harry Potter podcast, so let's get back to this Harry Potter mindset. Blessed screws. Okay, I'm ready for this episode, but before we get into it, I will remind you that the two links in the show notes below are still available. The SpeakPipe page link and the Google form link for anything you want to hear in an episode or say on an episode. You can use those two links down below. You can also send me an email. My email is ThePotterDiscussion@gmail.com. That is ThePotterDiscussion@gmail.com. Alright, let's get into today's episode. And the first thing that we have on this list is arithmancy. What is arithmancy? We hear Hermione talk about it, and we hear it, kind of floating around as a term, but what is it? What's the purpose of arithmancy? What is arithmancy? That's just what... This is so confusing. So I understand that JK really needed to put in some more, stuff, some more just whatever, just more Wizarding World jargon and more classes and just, kind of filler things to just kind of make sure that the world is really round, And I get that, but arithmancy is pointless, but it feels like it's kind of has like a backstage. It's kind of like the makeup actor for the main character almost, because it's mentioned a surprising amount for a subject that we don't even get to sit in with a class, and we don't even hear about it very often, besides Hermione, slamming her book shuts and saying, I have arithmancy, and that's a real class, those times when she just Ron says something, and then Hermione storms off, she shuts her book dramatically and, walks away. So those are the only times you really hear about it, when Hermione is, in the dining hall, and Harry and Ron are sitting there, and they're just talking, and about their schedules, or Hermione's, dreading the year because she took on every subject she could and joined every single club there was. Those are the only times you hear about it, but those times come up, and they come up surprisingly often. And it's strange because arithmancy seems like it should be important. Arithmancy, it even sounds important, but it's just it's not. There's just nothing to it. It's supposed to be important, but it's not. What's going on with that? I think that definitely fits in the category of a pointless thing in Harry Potter, and maybe Jo was thinking about she wanted to add it in, later. Maybe it would play an important part or later in the story even. But how could it? How could arithmancy play an important part of the story if we don't even know what arithmancy is, if you get what I mean? We don't understand arithmancy, and Hermione seems to be the only person that we know that actually is taking it or is even involved in arithmancy in the first place. So it seems a little strange for it to be so heavily featured despite its strangeness and, the fact that it's not even in the front seat of subjects. And I was thinking to myself the other day, writing this episode, like, it would be great if there was some kind of, clear up on like what even arithmancy is. And I was kind of doing some research on the internet, and what I kind of found was that no one really knows what arithmancy is, which in effect just makes this whole situation even more pointless, because if no one knows what it is, and if it doesn't take effect in the story, what's the point of adding it in the first place? And I know that Joe did have to add it, but all I'm saying is there's no point. There's no point to arithmancy, which is why it is a pointless thing in Harry Potter. And although I do think it could have come into play later, Hermione may have used her arithmancy skills later in the story, I don't know how that could even happen. Because again, we don't know what arithmancy is. How could it just be they're trying to save the world, and then Hermione just goes, oh yeah, I dig arithmancy, I'm gonna save the world now. It's just it doesn't fit. It doesn't really convey the message of the story. It's not this whole big, heartfelt, whole moment. And it's really difficult to kind of manufacture out of arithmancy, just kind of relying on this random subject that we haven't even heard about. So it seems strange for arithmancy to be included in such a way that heavily features it, but also doesn't talk about it, doesn't use arithmancy at all in the slightest. Hermione maybe once was doing her, arithmancy homework. Maybe once she was reading an arithmancy book, and they always talk about their schedules and how, when they, at the beginning of every year, Hermione's like, I'm gonna take arithmancy, I'm gonna take the study of ancient runes, and then Neville's like, should I take charms? Those kind of comedic relief moments, and just talk about the schedules in the dining hall and stuff like that. It's just, I don't know. It seems like something that is very unnecessary, and I understand why it had to be added again, but I don't know. I think we could have done without arithmancy, that is for sure. Even if arithmancy is pointless, there are so many more things that are even more pointless than that. So we better get a move on, because there are some pretty hilarious things on this list. And moving on, we have something that's not quite pointless, but just confusing, and that is stargazing. So it sounds, upfront, on the face of it, it sounds like, yes, of course, stargazing. You read the stars, the moon, the planets, and you understand what it means in terms of magic, in terms of fortune telling, in terms of telling the future. But if you go even just a slight bit deeper into it, what's the point of that? Okay, first of all, divination. We know exactly what divination is for. That is for telling the future. And stargazing is also used for that. I don't know. The centaurs seem to be very good at it, because they're, of course, centaurs. And, of course, we know Ferenzi became the help for the divination teacher, had help for Trelawney in the Order of the Phoenix. And he was really good at it, because centaurs are just very good at it. Stargazing and divination, reading smoke patterns and stuff like that. Of course, the famous line, Mars is bright tonight. So stargazing does seem to play a role in the story, but it doesn't. And it is very strange to kind of think about, because stargazing seems like a very, practical and useful thing, but it is not. So what could you really stand to gain? I mean, let's just practically look at this. What could you stand to gain from looking at the stars? I mean, got some great views. You can learn your planets. Well, you can learn your stars. You can learn your stars. But what other use does it have? Divination is for telling the future. Even something like charms. You could transfigure your telescope. You could charm the lens or something like that. But that's just other subjects. Stargazing is just that. Stargazing. Looking at the sky. For every Wednesday evening, I think it was, they go to the astronomy tower and just take out their lunoscopes and look at the stars, and I don't know what they were thinking with that. And I don't know. I don't know, maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm the only one who sees this, but stargazing just does not seem like something that is useful or even constructive to the story. Just, you're looking at you're looking at the sky, and maybe, in the real world, stargazing is, it's not a class, but it's great because it's, at night the sky gets really beautiful, all the stars come out, and you can just see into a different world. But in the wizarding world, that is a different world, and sure, maybe they have the same reasons for it, but it is clearly meant to be something that's educational. It's clearly meant to be something that the students are supposed to benefit off of from. So, why don't they have more to it? Why isn't there more to stargazing? Because it seems like there should be. It is so heavily featured, just like Arithmancy. It is shown in this light of, ultra importance, only can be performed on Wednesday evenings in the dark, and you have to, it's the highest tower in the castle. What are you gonna do with that? And even, okay, here's another point. So let's just say stargazing has a purpose. They can just get a model of the solar system, like Harry saw, like in the Diagon Alley in the third year, when he got dropped off by the night bus and picked up by Cornelius Fudge. He saw a complete model of the solar system, and he was saying he would never have to take another astronomy lesson again. Wonder why? Because it is so easy to just model what they see in the sky into something that they can just hold in their hand, and yet they still teach us a subject, despite the fact that they could just, get one. Harry did say they were pretty expensive, but still, I'm sure Hogwarts could spare one of those and just have it and study that instead of getting lunoscopes and special glasses and lenses and cleaning everything and keeping it all organized. I don't know, it just doesn't seem like something that has any practical use or is actually helpful to the students. So that's number 2. Again, maybe it's just me. If you disagree, let me know. But stargazing, pointless? I think so. And I think this next one has crossed people's minds many times before, and that is keeping Peeves around. So, Peeves, the poltergeist, is he is a nuisance, to say the least. He causes trouble, mayhem, chaos, panic. He throws ink at you, he breaks chalk, he breaks into classrooms, he screams, he yells, he sings songs. And yet, he is still kept around. Why? What's the point? What's the point of keeping Peeves around? I don't know. Filch, I am with you. Dumbledore clearly has his reasons for keeping Peeves around, but what could those reasons possibly be? Peeves just causes havoc. He just is running around, floating around, throwing things, breaking things, yelling. So there's really no point in keeping him around. Maybe Dumbledore's was like, yes, he will come into play later, he will be very important, but he didn't. And clearly Dumbledore's plan did not go 100% as he wanted it to, but how could Peeves have ever played a valuable part in what Dumbledore wanted? Maybe Dumbledore's kept him around for entertainment, maybe Dumbledore just didn't see the other side of Peeves because it was already, the book started saying about how around the Bloody Baron and the Headmaster, Peeves would always behave. And even if that were the case, Dumbledore knows everything that goes on around here. I had to quote it. So Dumbledore would still hear from, of course, from Filch. Filch is just going off like every single second of every single hour in Dumbledore's office, just ranting about how horrible Peeves is. And Dumbledore, of course, is hearing Filch and maybe not even acknowledging it. Maybe Dumbledore isn't even thinking about Peeves. But despite all of the prodding and poking Filch does, he wants Peeves out, Dumbledore still will not budge because Peeves is just so valuable to the castle. I don't know why Peeves is valuable to the castle, but for whatever reason, Dumbledore keeps him around, and that is so pointless. I'm pretty sure this is common ground. Peeves is pointless. He's a nuisance. He's not someone that should be kept around. And it would have been, amazing. From, an outsider's perspective, kind of looking in on Hogwarts, it would be great. If Peeves was in the movies, that would be fantastic to watch. But it would just be so painful because seeing Peeves doing all those horrible things, that's just, yikes. But, okay, this is kind of a side note, but it might just be me. It might just be me again. But I can't imagine Hogwarts with Peeves. I mean, like the movies. Like, it's just so hard to kind of like visualize. Like, how? Just imagine a floating man in a purple suit. It's like, that's mind-boggling for a Peeves to be in the movies. It seems so natural for Peeves to be in the books, but in the movies, it's like, what? And I know, actually, this is a fun fact, but Peeves was supposed to be in the movies, but the actor was just too funny. No one could get through any takes, and unfortunately, he was fired. And his kids thought he was Hagrid. And he said, yep, I'm Hagrid, because he didn't want to let them down. That's a fun story. But anyway, back to Hogwarts now, looking out from an insider's perspective on Hogwarts. Peeves should go. Peeves is not needed. And I'm sorry, Peeves. Really, I know he has a ball running around making everyone annoyed, but the fact is he just is not, he's not almost worthy of being kept around just because of all the horrible things that he's done. He is always annoying, and he is always making a mockery of every student at every corner. Peeves is really overstayed his welcome, and he really should go. Now, the next one on my list might seem that it does have a point. It might seem like this is something that is necessary. But if you think about it, it actually is not. So, what I'm thinking of now is Timeturners. Timeturners are pointless. Go ahead, say no, they aren't. Okay, now that you've gotten all that out of your system, let's just get into this. So, Timeturners, why do I think they're pointless? Well, okay. There are so many rules and so little uses for Timeturners, the risk way outweighs the reward. I mean, honestly, just like you can't show yourself. You can't do anything like that. You have to time it with yourself and someone else. And there are just so many different rules, and only a very select few people get it. And besides, I mean, like, based on the rules, no one could use it to like solve their problem. If they like dropped an egg and they needed that egg, they couldn't just go back in time and take it, because that would change the course of history, and that is illegal. And even it's just the smallest things. They just exist to not be used. I think that's a perfect analogy. Timeturners exist to not be used because there's just too much risk, and the Ministry of Magic kind of made them, and then they were like, yeah, you can go back in time. And then they're like, yeah, can I fix this problem? They're like, no. And then the people ask, like, what can we do? And they're like, you can go back in time and you can do nothing, and then you can come back. I don't know. I don't see it. I just do not see it in these Timeturners. Whoever invented this, I mean, it was a good thought, but a very bad execution. And I mean, even despite the fact that Hermione used it, I'm pretty sure her use case is just about the only one that can actually work, and did. A student who has too many classes. I mean, of course they're going to give this, star student who wants to take more classes the means to do so. And someone who could execute it, someone who's smart enough, and someone, oh my gosh, I just wish I'm looking out my window and I just saw a squirrel like crawl in a tree. That's cool. Oh, he's out. Sorry, side note. Anyway, so Timeturner. I don't know. I always record by a window, and I'm just looking, and there's so many like squirrels and like birds flying around, and it's just very, very entertaining. But I just saw like a squirrel crawl out of a hole in a tree. That was cool. All right. I don't know. Okay, back to Timeturners. Anyway, Hermione. So, Hermione, she is a star student who wants to take more classes. Of course, the minister is going to be like, yeah, here's a time turner. You can become the star pupil, and you can become the Minister of Magic. And Hermione's like, great. And then they're like, all right, but you can't do this, that, and then the list just goes on and on and on. And she uses it for one thing, just to go back in time, switch with herself, take the classes she couldn't, and voila, boom. She is now, taking as many classes as she possibly can, and she's doing it well. Okay, great. Then what? Then after that, she gives it the time turner back, but there is absolutely no other thing that I can think of that would actually be useful. I mean, possibly the Ministry of Magic, if all the Timeturners didn't get destroyed. Or maybe, I mean, I'm pretty sure in the Cursed Child there was one that was like still around, something like that. But if all the Timeturners weren't destroyed, I think it would be maybe like possibly they would go back and like if Voldemort won, they could like, oh my gosh, theory, Voldemort won and they went back in time and they fixed it. And oh my gosh, this theory is forming. So Snape secretly has a time turner. And he went back in time, and he went forward in time. I mean, like, he didn't move in time, that's the right word, and they lost. So what Snape does is he goes back in time, he casts the dough. Harry follows the dough, and then he finds the sword of Gryffindor. And then he gets the sword, and they destroy Horcruxes, and that is how they win. Theory? So, that's my theory, but that is use case number 2, and that is the final thing that I can think of. Going back in time to save the world from an evil by leading your least favorite student that becomes your favorite student into a lake where the sword of Godric Gryffindor is lying there for anyone to take. But the seaweed is evil, and the locket around you will strangle your neck if you wear it. That's fun. Anyway, that's the only thing that I can think of besides Hermione that could actually come into use. So that is Timeturners. Next up, we have an item that seems useful on the face, but is actually one of the most useless things ever. That is the Remembral. So if you can dig back in your memory, to the first book, Neville had a Remembral, and Malfoy took it, and Harry caught it, and that's how he became the Seeker on the Gryffindor team. But Neville had a Remembral, because of course Neville would need a Remembral to remember the things that he had forgotten. But that's just the thing. It doesn't help you remember the things that you've forgotten. All it does is tell you that you've forgotten something. Hear me out. Actually, a little Easter egg, when Neville does get the Remembral in the mail, he isn't wearing his robes, and that is what he is forgetting in the movies. But besides that, he gets his Remembral. Neville gets his Remembral, yikes, that's hard to say, and he is holding it, and then he's like, if the smoke turns, red, I've forgotten something, and then he's like, oh, and it turns red, and he's like, I guess I've forgotten something, but then he even says itself, the problem is, I can't remember what I have forgotten. Sounds a little bad designy to me, don't you think? So yeah, in a Remembral, the smoke turns red and that's it, and you don't know what you've forgotten. So it is a whole deal, it is a whole thing. And what I was wondering about when I was seeing it is, how much does that cost and who would actually get that? I mean, it's like a Hail Mary almost. Neville's grandmother is getting this Remembral for Neville, thinking, oh yeah, this will help him out so much. Gets it for him, sends it to Neville, and then Neville gets it and is like, great, now I won't forget anything. And then he forgets something, and what does he do? He knows he forgot something, and he can't remember what he forgot. It is so pointless, and it is almost, it's not even a helpful device, it's just a taunting device. If you really think about it, it is just a device made for taunting, because it's just saying, oh, you forgot something, but I don't want to tell you what it is, one of those horribly annoying things that just will never go away. It's like an itch that when you scratch it, it doesn't even go away. It's just under your skin, those? So annoying. But that is kind of how I imagine the Rememberall to be. Okay. It is time. It is time for the very last one. The one that I was cluing to at the beginning of this episode. Oh, man, I'm laughing just thinking about it. Okay. All right. So, this took place in the second book. We were in a very interesting class where a very interesting teacher decided to release a cage of Cornish pixies. Gilderoy Lockhart thought, it's a great idea to release this on the class. And Gilderoy Lockhart thought, hey, this is a great idea to release it on the class. And when he did, everything went to chaos. Neville got strung up on a skeleton, books were flying everywhere, candles were, burning down, and eventually all the students ran out. And oh my gosh, okay, let's get through this. Okay, so Gilderoy Lockhart raises his wand and he goes, okay, I can say this. Pekipixi Pesternomi. I don't know why that's so funny. Pekipixi Pesternomi. Oh my gosh. Oh man. That is so funny. And I know probably no one else is laughing at this, but Pekipixi Pesternomi. Pekipixi, really? Okay, that is number one in terms of pointless things in Harry Potter. That is number one in this episode. Pekipixi Pesternomi. Oh man, that is bad. That is so bad. And Gilderoy actually thought that it would do something. Well, I mean, he didn't, but he was trying to pass it off like he did. And Hermione's face just going what are you doing? What is it? What has gotten into you? Oh man, that was so funny. And I remember watching it and just going oh man, that has to be a mistake. That's just no one would write that into a movie. But of course I was very young when I watched the movie for the first time. But now I'm kind of seeing it. It's just that is so funny. It's just so funny. And every time I see it, it's there are those certain scenes that you always see, over and over again. You can just see them on repeat, and they always are entertaining. This is one of those scenes. It's just the most organized chaos you've ever seen. So the Battle of the Order of the Phoenix and this are two scenes that I love every single time. There's just a few scenes that are just so entertaining and so amazing that are fantastic to watch or even read. So those are the scenes that I absolutely love about Harry Potter, and this is one of those scenes. Pekipixi Pesternomi. So man, that was funny, pointless and funny, and that's it. That's the end of this episode. I love this one. It's always good to have a good laugh every once in a while, have a silly episode. So that's funny. I think next episode, I think we're gonna have a quizmaster. We haven't had a quizmaster in a very long time. So not tomorrow. Next episode, we're gonna have a quizmaster. I am looking forward to it personally, just because quizmasters are so fun. They're so fun to make, so fun to record, and they are very fun to participate in. So I think that's the whole episode. If you're still listening to this, I bet you care about a little bit what I have to say. And I'm actually getting a new microphone. So cool. I've had this trusty microphone. This is a Samsung Q2U. Great microphone. Absolutely loved it. But unfortunately, it has been showing signs of breakage, which is unfortunate because it is the first microphone I've ever got, and it is great, and I love it. But it is not going to be working very well much longer. I bet if you have been listening for a while, but you've kind of noticed the curve of audio. How I started out with nothing, just a microphone, then I kind of got into the production of it, and now I'm here with this microphone, and it held up great. But then suddenly it just went down. It just went down, man. It was just so far, just a dip. So I had to get a new one, and I hoped that I would have it for this recording, but I didn't, because I got it from a company that allowed me to see where my package was, and this is the kind of thing that I love. I was just tracking it from state to state, to place to place, to town, and then it's in my state right now. But I thought it would get to me, I think today. I think it's gonna get to me today. Now, this is Saturday, November 13th. So hopefully it will arrive today. And if you're listening to this in the future, after November, just know that I have the new microphone, and likely if you listen to any other episodes after this one, you will hear that new microphone. So I hope you enjoy those episodes. I'm definitely looking forward to that. And that is the episode. Please make sure you review this podcast. It would help me out greatly if you do. If anything you want to hear or say, definitely send me a voice submission or a text submission using the SpeakPipe page link and the Google form link down below. Also, make sure to send me an email. My email is ThePotterDiscussion at... So, okay. I just came back because my microphone came. It is beautiful. It is amazing. It's a lot bigger and colder and heavier than I thought it would be, but it is amazing. That was the sound of me. Every single car that passed my driveway, I would just be looking at it pass. And then finally, I see the FedEx truck, and that made me so happy. So, it's been like half an hour. I was unboxing my microphone, testing it out and everything. So, this is not it. This is still my Q2U, but this is the last audio you will ever hear on the Samsung Q2U. I hope you enjoy it. I hope you enjoyed this. And this is, forever and ever. We are never going to be on this microphone. So this really marks the beginning of a new era of the Potter Discussion. I'm very excited. And goodbye Q2U. Goodbye listeners. As always, use information to your advantage, and I will see you later.
This was the Potter Discussion.